was already here since 1953. I was brought up in the Midlands, where I started my teaching career, but then moved to High Wycombe when I got married in 1975. We lived there until 2009 and then moved to Slough. That's about 12 years ago. In Hinduism, there are many deities and therefore many festivals throughout the year. Festival time provides many opportunities for preparing, cooking food for the different gods and goddesses, and then sharing it amongst the community. Festival food is usually quite rich, made with ghee,
ये देखो
milk,
रानो,
milk
इंटरफेथ
butter,
का है ये.
and
I
plenty
don't know
of
any one of them. वो एक दो हैं, ये
rubbed
अपने बारे में बता रही है.
rasgulla, halwas, very, very rich foods. Everyone is familiar with Diwali, the festival of lights, and perhaps Janmashtami, the birthday of Lord Krishna. Holi, the spring festival of color. All these I celebrate with my family and friends. I'm going to talk about the festival that I have celebrated just recently. It's called Karwajot. Karwa is an earthen pot, and Jot is the 4th day after full moon. It is an annual fasting festival from dawn to moonrise, celebrated by women for the health and longevity of their husbands. Unmarried girls also join in with this in the hope of getting a suitable husband. For this festival, I prepared a vegetarian meal without onion and garlic the night before. This includes sabji, yogurt, little mithai, some fruit, fresh coconut, and fenia cooked in milk, very rich. These are a speciality for this festival. The fat content keeps you sustained during the day. I'm not too keen on fenia myself, but I do eat a small portion. Then I apply on one hand. I wake up very early in the morning for between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, quick shower, then make chapati and eat my so-called feast. It is supposed to be a rest day for the ladies, fasting, so we spend time dressing up in our wedding day clothes and jewelry for the puja. Nothing is eaten for the rest of the day, but I'm allowed to have one drink around 4 p.m. After I have done the puja with gifts for my mother-in-law or another elder in the family, I usually go to the mandir in Slough with a group of ladies also fasting and sit in circles to pass our trays round while chanting a prayer and listen to the story of how this fast originated. This year with COVID-19, going to the mandir has not been possible. So I got together with my sister-in-law and her newlywed daughter and did the puja in front of the shrine at home. And this year, the moon was visible, bright and clear about 8 p.m. from our garden. I did a short prayer and offered sweet milky water to the moon, then ate my meal of whole urd dal without onion and garlic and rice, which I had prepared during the day. My daughters-in-law don't keep this fast, but they do look out for the moon and usually send me flowers. When I was in my teens, I used to keep this fast with my friends, but we offered our prayers to the stars in the evening before eating our meal of urd dal and rice. 4 days after this Karwajot is Ashtami, which is the 8th day after the full moon. On this day, I also keep a fast in the same way as Karwajot, but offer my prayers to the stars. This fast is for the well-being and prosperity of my children. Life is all about what we eat, and Hindu festivals are a motivation of using seasonal food that are meant to be good for the soul, good for the body, but These very rich, sweet mithais, made with ghee and fried and syrupy, were consumed only on special occasions in the past, but nowadays they are readily available throughout the year and causing some health issues such as diabetes and health problems. My family and many other Hindus prefer to be vegetarian. Some people do consume meat, but they do not eat beef because cows are considered sacred. This is because Lord Krishna was a cowherd. He used to love eating butter, which is makhan. Also, milk is a complete food and can be used for many valuable byproducts, such as cream, buttermilk, butter, yogurt, khoya, paneer, etc., and many of the sweets that are used for festivals and offerings to the deities. Some foods are associated with certain gods and goddesses. For example, laddu and modak with Lord Ganesh, butter with Lord Krishna, betel leaves and betel nuts with Supreme Goddess Durga Mata. We offer yellow foods to Lord Shiva, to Lord Vishnu, like dal and bananas, honey. All different festivals and the variety of foods adds excitement and a buzz to our daily lives. And both festival and festival food cannot be separated. There's no festival without foods. After one festival, we're already thinking about the next. So on Saturday, we will be celebrating Diwali. Then Christmas is not too far away. Thank you for listening. I will pass you on to Seema next. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Seema and I'm a member of Walk and Talk. I feel very fortunate that Anita has set up this group and is in our lives, and I feel very fortunate to be part of this group. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my basic knowledge and experience with you. I was born in a Sikh family. The Sikh religion is a fairly young religion founded by our 10 gurus. Amongst their teachings, they taught us to lead an honest family life, emphasizing that it is important to earn an honest living and share one's earnings with those less fortunate. The Gurdwara, the Sikh place of worship, is a lifeline, particularly for older people who have somewhere to go to, somewhere where they can pray, where they can listen to the prayers, and the kirtan, which is the singing of God's praises, and they can meet their friends. At the Gurdwara, Kara Prasad is always served either after worship or during worship in the prayer room or just outside it. It is a sweet dish made of flour, fat, sugar and water, and it's similar to halwa. It is very tasty and I always loved eating it, particularly as a child. And when you take prasad, Kara Prasad, you receive it with both hands as a sign of respect. Our Guru started the great concept of langar. This is Guru's free kitchen, which provides free food all day, every day to everyone at the Gurdwara. And I was fortunate to be able to visit the Golden Temple in India for the first time a couple of years ago, and I had langar there. And over there, it is done to a massive scale because of the sheer numbers. The concept of the langar, i.e. everyone sitting together, eating the same food in the same place at the same time, was the Guru's way of teaching us that all humans are equal, irrespective of rich or poor, male or female, etc. Langar usually consists of a freshly prepared, complete Indian meal. You have rotia, the chapati, the dal, which is the lentils, the sabji, which is the vegetable curry. And normally there's yogurt with all the trimmings and tea or water. And our gurus taught us that we should do seva. And in terms of the seva means selfless service, like voluntary work. And in terms of the Gurdwara, that means you can help to prepare the food, serve the food, and clear up afterwards. And in recent times, various Sikh organizations have extended this outside the Gurdwara to serve the local community where it's needed, maybe, for example, the homeless. Growing up, my parents taught me not to eat beef. A baptized Sikh who has taken Amrit is not allowed to smoke, drink, and has to eat only vegetarian food, no meat, fish, or eggs. In recent years, my husband and I have believed in Sai Baba and tried to follow his teachings as well. There's a lot of overlaps. He respects all religions and teaches us to be honest, to do service, and to share our earnings with where they are needed. Sai Baba also teaches us not to drink or smoke and not to eat meat, fish, or eggs. I have been largely vegetarian all my life, so this was not difficult to follow. We try to avoid eggs, but this is not always easy to do because so many products contain egg. But because veganism has really taken off in recent times, it's become much easier. Sai Baba promotes sattvic food. This is eating pure food, and this is something I'm interested in and learning about. He says that as we cook, we need to keep our thoughts good because those vibrations transfer into our food. And Sai Baba suggests we should eat without distractions around us. And personally, I do not like eating while there's bad news, watching bad news on the TV. My husband is Hindu and he is religious. Faith is an integral part of our lives. It has sustained and supported us in times of need. So faith has definitely improved and enriched my life. Thank you for listening, and I have the pleasure to pass you over to Sushma ji for the next section.
Sushma.
Yeah, thank you, Seema. I just had a little difficulty in unmuting myself. Sorry. Right. Good evening, first of all, to everybody. And my name is Sushma Sharma. I have lived in Slough since 1980. I belong to the Arya Samaj faith. Arya Samaj is an offshoot of Hinduism and an early Hindu reform movement that promotes values and practices based on a belief system from the scripts of the Vedas. Arya Samaj advocates a lacto-vegetarian diet, and in particular, the eating of beef is strictly prohibited because they believe it is harmful not only to the individual, but also to the planet and our survival. They strongly believe that we have to learn how to coexist peacefully with all of creation. Eating can cause untold harm, yet it can be changed into a practice that is beneficial to our coexistence with nature and creation. And for this reason, Arya Samaj advocates eating simple food to live in harmony with nature. Sharing food with others is also an important part of my faith. In my house, we eat very simple food on a daily basis, and on special celebrations, we make special dishes and desserts. We celebrate the main festivals of Diwali, Holi, Basant Panchami, Raksha Bandhan, Dussehra, Vaisakhi, and birthdays. Regarding food sharing, Arya Samaj donates food to needy ones, just like we do in our Walk and Talk group to Slough Food Bank. Like for Diwali and other festivals, My mother taught me many dishes, and I have started sharing the recipes with my group. I have shared my recipes of shakarparas, halwas, and khatais. All these dishes are made from wheat flour, sugar, ghee, and semolina. I was raised in a strictly vegetarian family, where my parents encouraged us to follow vegetarian guidelines of no meat and no eggs or fish, saying that our simple food and lifestyle would keep us healthy. When my older brother came to England to study in the 1950s, he told his landlady that he was a strict vegetarian. And the landlady said, no problem. And he enjoyed her cooking for months. One day he found a bone floating in his meal. And he said to her, didn't she know he was vegetarian? And she told him she used to cook the stew and scoop out the vegetables to give him. He was upset, but then started to eat meat from then onwards because he had developed a taste for it. In my experience, when one of my nieces came to study in England in 1970, she was on a high protein diet, and her mother taught me how to cook meat for her. Eventually, I also became a non-vegetarian and started to cook meat for my children, thinking that otherwise they would have problems with their school dinners. I would still say that we are mostly vegetarian in our house, though. Out of respect, if any relative came to my place, I never served or cooked meat in the house. Well, on a happy note, in the spirit of Diwali celebrations, I wish you all a very happy Diwali. Thank you for listening to me. I will now pass over to Aarti, who will share her experience of her Arya Samaj upbringing. And thank you.
Hello, my name is Aarti. I was born in Mauritius, but lived in France for 20 years before moving to UK. I have had a mixed faith upbringing, as one of my grandfathers was an Arya Samaji, and while the rest of my family was Hindu, and I continue to follow both ritual to this day. In Mauritius, traditional food is served during religious festivals and weddings, which is different from Indian Hindu food, because Mauritian food is less spicy and is cooked simply. I guess because Mauritius, being a very small island, it didn't have access to all the spices at that time. So we were normally cooking using the locally available ingredients. During weddings, for haldi ceremony, we have a traditional vegetarian food, which consists of 7 curries pickled served with puri and rice. And on the next day of the wedding, we also have dal puri, a traditional bread or paratha, which is stuffed with chana dal, served with veg curries. This dal puri is also a well-known Mauritian street food. Whenever you think of dal puri, it immediately reminds you of the aroma and the beaches and street of Mauritius. I learned to make dal puri when I was very young, as my grandmother and mom were always cooking on special occasions. And now my daughters are very keen to learn. Whilst in France for 20 years, my life was quite different because we were cut off from lots of our traditions and had no temple to go either. The only temple was a Sri Lankan one in Paris, which I went a few times. When we moved to France, French people didn't know a lot about Hinduism, our tradition and festivals. First year there, we celebrated Diwali, and we lit candles and diyas outside. And the next day, one of the neighbors came over and asked us if we were in a sect, and they looked quite worried. And the impact of this was that gradually we celebrated less and less. Unfortunately, my daughters do not know much about our culture and faith. However, on the plus side, we started to learn a lot more about French cooking and regularly doing wonderful baking, such as tarts from pears, cherries, or mirabelle, which are small plums, which we had in our garden. I also learned from my friends and their mom how to make French food like ratatouille made out of aubergine, tomatoes, and courgettes. I regularly make fondue, raclette, which are cheese-based dishes, and plenty of other French dishes which we use in our family celebrations too. Since moving back to Slough, I feel blessed to have a temple which I try to go regularly. I am also trying hard to make up for the lost time by passing my Mauritian cuisine tips to my daughters, introducing them to our culture. Today, my present cooking is a fusion of Mauritian, French, Indian, and English food. I hope you found that talk interesting. Thank you for listening. I will pass you over to Leela. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Emil, David, Sam, Paul, for your patience and the many hours you have all given to enable us to get to this presentation. Thank you, Anita, for your support and encouragement in giving us this opportunity to share in this interfaith event. My name is Leela. I was born in Kerala, a state in South India. I grew up in Mumbai and left there to join my family here in UK when I was 18. I've lived in Slough for the last 20 years and attend St. Paul's Church on Stoke Road. The good news of Jesus was brought to the shores of Kerala in AD 52, only about 20 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. It is believed that Thomas, one of the 12 disciples of Jesus, traveled the spice route to Kerala along with other believers from the Middle East. He witnessed to the Hindu priestly class in that region with signs and miracles that Jesus was the long-awaited Savior and established the church there. We are descendants of these early Christians. Christians around the world observe Christmas and Easter week as our main celebrations. These celebrate Jesus' birth on earth and his death and resurrection. The celebration itself and the food varies depending on the cultural context. For instance, in England, roast turkey is often served at Christmas and hot cross buns on Good Friday. There are a lot of activities and traditions attached to Christian festivals, though these are man-made and not biblical. Have you heard about the bubblegum and fluff analogy? After chewing bubblegum, one puts it under the mattress, and after a length of time, it collects all kinds of fluff upon it. It's the same with our festivals and celebrations. A lot of fluff has stuck to it, like the Christmas tree, the mistletoe, the turkey, hot cross buns, Yule log, mince pies, etc., etc. My family from South India tend to have a chicken stew and appam on Christmas and Easter mornings, just because chicken is readily available and it's a favorite dish. Appams are made with rice, coconut milk, and toddy. Toddy is a drink that is collected from the coconut trees. When left to ferment, it turns alcoholic. Toddy, when added to ground rice and coconut, causes the dough to rise, and the resulting batter makes soft, fluffy pancakes called appams by Keralians. What I loved when growing up in India was the carol singing and nativity plays at Christmas. We visited homes and sang carols, walking along the streets, singing with drums and carrying big lighted stars. Both at Christmas and Easter, we had early morning service, appam and stew for breakfast, and a variety of vegetable, meat, and fish dishes with rice for lunch. I love food and enjoy sharing with family and friends. But as I have grown older, I have removed all the fluff surrounding the gum and kept things simple, focusing more on the truths of the Bible, intimacy with God, enjoying his unconditional love and favor. Other cultures may have other traditional foods, though none of these are specifically related to the Christian faith, just cultural practices. We don't have any specific rules about food which we have to follow. We are free in Jesus to eat anything. Jesus himself said, "It's not what goes into your mouth which makes a person unclean, but what comes out of the mouth." Our faith is really about our relationship with God, not about what we eat or the festivals we celebrate. Similarly, with regards to fasting, there's no set rules in place, and it's not necessarily something which we have to do. People just do it as and when they feel prompted to. There is one tradition that is inherent to all Christians, and that's what we call the Holy Communion. It is normally any type of bread and wine or grape juice, and is served when believers gather together. We do this because the night before Jesus died, he told his followers to eat and drink in remembrance of him. He passed around bread and said, "Eat this in remembrance of my body, which is broken for you." Then he passed around wine and said, "Drink this in remembrance of my blood, which is poured out for you." This was specifically relating to the sacrifice he was about to give of himself to forgive our sins, a one-time offering for all humanity. And it's each person's choice whether to accept and believe in him. Jesus is the main focus of our faith. Thank you all for listening. I will pass you over to Suman for the next section.
Hello, everybody. My name is Simon. I've been connected with Slough for the last 40 years since I got married. I moved to Slough from West Yorkshire, where I lived as a child. We moved away for 16 of those 40 years, but then came back 20 years ago to be near the family. I too, like some of the other ladies, am from the Hindu faith originally, so I grew up a Hindu, but I came across a spiritual group called the Brahma Kumaris 11 years ago, and I was so taken up with it that I wanted to follow its teachings. So I've been trying to do that ever since. I would say that this faith is very linked to the Hindu faith. It's followed, but nowadays it's followed by people from all different faiths, and it's got centers all over the world. But since this talk is all about food, so I think I'll tell you about food and the Brahma Kumaris. Well, you've all heard the saying, "You are what you eat." Well, the Brahma Kumaris have also got a saying, which is "Jaisa an vaisa man," which when you translate it says, "As is your food, so is the state of your mind." So therefore, the Brahma Kumaris also, just like the Hindus, believe in a very sattvic diet, which means no meat, no fish, no eggs, and no onions and garlics. Now, you're probably going to say, why no onions and garlic? Why do the Hindus say that? Well, our forefathers, long time ago, discovered that onion and garlic affect the state of your mind. They create feelings of anger and lust in you. So it's best to avoid it. And since I wanted so much to follow the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, I decided to do that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I managed to do that. Well, I've always been a vegetarian, so that was no problem, but I would cook with onions and garlic. I grew up doing that. So when I decided that I wanted to give that up now, it was a bit of a problem. I was worried how the rest of the family were going to take it, but I decided, let me give it a go. So as I was doing all the cooking, I decided that I just wouldn't put onion and garlic and not tell them about it. So that's what I did. And amazingly, they never even realized that I wasn't putting onion and garlic in the food. They were quite happy eating that, so that was fine. The problem was also like when I was out and about, like gone to a party or a wedding. I mean, all the caterers put onion and garlic in the food, so I used to worry about that. But when I went to our Brahma Kumari head center in India, in Rajasthan, I asked one of the seniors about this. I said, what do I do? Because you can't really avoid going to these places. And she said it was fine once in a while, as long as you have a vegetarian diet, it doesn't really matter if you once in a while have some onion and garlic in your food. And also, I used to eat eggs before, and giving that up was a little bit more tricky. I didn't mind not eating the eggs itself, but as I think some of the others have said, there's so many products out there that have eggs in them, so I had to be more careful. And the most difficult part was if I ever went to a celebration, like a birthday celebration, and then I was offered a piece of cake and it was very difficult to refuse. But of course, when it came to the immediate family, if it was my children's birthday, it was fine because I would just cook the cake at home and just make an egg-free cake at home, so that was no problem. Another thing that the Brahma Kumaris believe is that you should have a very, very simple diet. And also, when you cook, you should have good vibrations, good thoughts. Don't even try to cook if you're not feeling in that sort of good mood. So I do try to do that as well. This thought also means that some Brahma Kumaris won't even eat outside. They feel that they don't know what kind of vibrations have gone into the food, into the cooking of the food, so they won't eat outside. I'm not that strict because I still do eat at the like family houses, like my sister's and my brother's house. And they're so good now that they often cook food for me without onions and garlic. If they're cooking, they put some aside before they add the onion and the garlic in it. So I'm very, very fortunate. The impact on the family, well, my husband's side of the family all ate meat, but his mum didn't eat meat. So she cooked vegetarian at home and the family would eat meat outside. And so that's what I did. I followed that example. Right from the day I got married, I said I wasn't going to cook meat, but if they wanted to, they could, and they could eat out. So occasionally my husband would cook meat at home. But since I've been following the Brahma Kumaris, I've asked him politely, please, could we make our home an meat-free home? And again, I'm very fortunate. It just happened that he agreed, and so we don't have any meat in the house at all now. And my children, when they were growing up, my husband wanted them to eat meat, so they would eat meat at home, at school, but not at home. So, and now they're both married, my son and my daughter, they're both married and they cook meat in their own homes, but that's fine. It's up to them, but they seem to be very happy to eat the food that I make at home. In fact, they tell me now that they're turning more and more vegetarian, so they don't eat much meat at all now, even in their own homes. Even my son-in-law, who's an Englishman, 10 years ago when my daughter got married, he used to have big discussions with me about how good meat was and how it's got all the proteins and everything. And if I ever said to him, well, meat is far harder to digest, it's better for your gut, he would argue with me. But now he's turning more and more vegetarian. Occasionally he'll have meat, but apparently he eats more vegetarian now, so some magic's happening. And having this sattvic diet, I find that I eat, also as far as the vibrations is concerned, I also try to eat in silence. In our house, we've sort of got a rule that either we sit in silence to eat, or we just have light chatter at the dinner table, and we never ever sit in front of the television and eat like that. So all these things are helping in that. I used to suffer with IBS at one time, and I don't anymore. So I think it's working for me. And I just wanted to say that I really enjoy living in Slough because I love the multiculturalism about Slough. I love the different faiths. I love the different people in Slough. Before the lockdown, the Brahma Kumaris used to have lots and lots of events in Slough, and they were always well attended. But now that, because of the lockdown, we do have lots of talks and events via Zoom, and even more people are attending our activities because it's great to be able to do this in the comfort of our own home. As a Brahma Kumari, we have daily readings and study sessions for an hour via Zoom for the people who follow the Brahma Kumari's teachings every morning, and I attend that every morning. It really is lovely. I love it. It sets me up for the day on positivity in my life, and it's taught me and continues to teach me acceptance and feelings of contentment. I used to be quite an unconfident person. That has really, really improved. I would never have done this talk 10 years ago. So, and it's taught me to see the whole world as one big family, my family. I just love the teachings. I mean, I used to enjoy my Hindu faith before that as well. I used to love doing all the celebrations and things like that, which I still do. The Brahma Kumaris still follow all the celebrations of the Hindu faith, but they celebrate everything else as well. So they'll be celebrating Christmas as well, and Easter, and all the different festivals of all the different religions. So it's great. And I think that's all. Thank you for listening to me about my faith. I feel very, very lucky to have found this path. I've gained a lot. And then if anybody else would like to know more or get involved, please search Brahma Kumaris online and you'll get through to Global Corporation House and see all that's available. So, and that's it. Thank you very, very much for listening. Pass you back to Emil, I think, or Anita. Sorry, I pass you back to Anita.
Right. Hello, everyone. Anita back again here. First of all, I would like to thank each and every member of my team for sharing their personal foodie journeys with you today. It has been interesting for me to see the similarities amongst the various faiths when it comes to celebrating or marking major events, milestones from weddings to birthdays to baptisms, from stories of abstinence and fasting, feasting, and fiestas. I also noticed the change in our thinking about what used to be good, what is good for us, and what is good for the planet. It is quite obvious listening to all of our stories here that there is a change in the air when it comes to our food, what we do with our food, how do we share our food, how we grow our food, and how we think about our food as an impactful product of our lives. My personal experiences are not too dissimilar, but I leave you with two very striking reflections. I think back to my great-grandmother's lifestyle at the turn of the last century. She led a simple life. Her name was Rami. Rami led a very simple life, had faith in the goodness of human beings, ate no processed food, and ground her wheat to make wheat flour in an old stone mill. It's called a chakki in India. Plastic packaging and makeup did not exist, while her most precious ingredients were salt, peppercorns, turmeric, cardamom, and nuts. Sweets were an absolute luxury, and she would sew and mend her clothes until they ripped. Fast forward 120 years, and my daughter today does not eat processed foods. She's on the verge of becoming a vegetarian and has not bought any makeup or a new piece of clothing this year. She lives in Spain, and her most precious commodities are paprika, smoked paprika, and saffron, olives, and pimentos. To me, it feels like we've gone the whole circle. The difference is the drivers of change. This time, perhaps, the change is not driven by religion at all, but by faith. Faith in the belief that human beings are good at heart and will be able to pull the planet back from the brink of disaster by making our lives more sustainable and in harmony with nature. They are not being guided by religious figures, but by thought influencers such as David Attenborough and Greta Thunberg, regardless of what age they are. In Mahabharata, Lord Krishna says that whenever human beings are lost on this earth and disaster looms, he will come back as a human being to guide us through the darkness and show us the light. Only time will tell if this is the case this time around as well. And finally, I leave you with this food for thought and fodder for the soul. Whether it was the tasty langar in the Golden Temple I had 3 years ago, or the spicy goat biryani with our neighbors 40 years ago for Bakar Eid, or the Thanksgiving dinner with our friends in Florida, I always think there is something very, very special about cooking and sharing food with the community, family, and friends. It is the love and the devotion with which this food is cooked and the joy with which it is shared that gives it the extra X factor and makes it an evocative experience which lingers in our memories long after that meal is finished. I do wish it had been a physical event today, which would have allowed us to share some of these gourmet dishes we've been speaking about today. But I hope at least it has whet your appetite for the future. I hope you have enjoyed these talks, for which I would like to thank all of my team and Art Beyond Belief in bringing this together. We're happy to answer any questions if you've got, and thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita. I'll leave the picture for the time being on the screen to whet our appetites. This was a picture by you, and thank you everyone for sending their pictures. I'm so hungry now. I have some comments in the chat section. I want to read them. Haseen is leaving us. Apologies. I will have to leave this event for our own in Bracknell. It's interesting. Thank you, Haseen Budu. And I had some thank yous from Amita, Billy Cousins, George and Anne Lamont saying very inspiring talk. Thank you. And again, Lamont saying interesting to see how thoughtful you all are about how you prepare food, how you eat it and share it. Love the emphasis on purity, vibrations, simplicity, and sharing. Now, I would like to open chat for people. And if anyone wants to ask any questions, or I have something else as well. Ahmadiyya Muslim community, someone from Ahmadiyyas. Thank you for inviting me. It's really inspiring. Thank you. And anyone else wants to speak at this time? If you have any questions.
I'd like to add something. I think as the chair of Slough Faith Partnership, I'd like to thank Anita for participating in this and for arranging the speakers. But I'd also like to respond a little to the fact that people are turning to vegetables rather than meat. And I think it's got a lot to do with the way meat is being reared. There's a lot of cruelty involved in it now, which has not been the case before. And I think that's beginning to turn people. We're becoming a lot more fussy about the way what we eat is produced. And I think that's a really good thing, I must say.
I would like to add something on back of what David has just said. I was talking to my GP not so long ago about food. And he was explaining that there has been a sea change in the way in which people have seen food since COVID started. There has been a lot in the media about the wet markets in China and about the cruelty that you mentioned. And it has turned even more people against consuming food that is reared in such a fashion. So I think current events also have played their part in making people think about food in a lot more detail, think about the origin of food, where it is coming from, how it is traveling, how it is stored, how it is. In the recent years, he was explaining about the controversy around chlorinated chicken, for example, and that is still a live issue. We don't know how the trade deal is going to go with America, but current affairs and issues being raised in the news, which have a direct impact on our health, is also something that raises awareness, I think, in people these days.
Thank you, Anita. Anyone else would like to comment or ask any questions from the speakers? Yvonne?
Hello.
Eva.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for inviting me. And can you update me to other more message and about the food, how to cook and recipes? I would like to, find out more, because I have a daughter, 16 years old. She loves Indian, and we love anyway Indian food, Hindu, to experience so many different kitchen. Thank you. Can someone update me, or can you email help me with that? Please.
Well, I would like to update you now. These marvelous ladies, 12 of them, are part of a project called Food for Thought.
Yeah.
And they're making a cookbook, and with their own heritage, recipes to their own heart, and they're all growing their own organic vegetables and fruit. And so they are going to take their own pictures, they are going to write their recipes, and we are helping them to put them together. So when it is done, you will all know about it. But if you're after a particular recipe, then I will put you in contact with the leader of the group. They will help you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I thought you might like to know that the New Scientist is running an all-day event on the 28th of this month on food and agriculture.
Oh, that's good. Carol, is that you? My screen is very small. Is that you, Carol?
It's Carol speaking. Carol Bolter speaking here. It's very nice to join you. And I thank you all for your good wishes to me on Hugh's death. It's been a great support. But the Food and Agriculture Day on the 28th does prove to be quite interesting, with people talking about how food is produced and the impact that it has on the land and on the climate and on the way in which we live.
If you could send me the link, I'll pass it on.
Just go to the New Scientist website.
Okay, thank you very much. Carol, by the way, is a scientist herself into evolution particularly, so you can trust her in that.
Thank you.
I have another message. Anna Thomas. Do you want to speak, Anna? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. I don't have anything profound to say, Emil. It's been a very interesting evening, and so many of the themes that people have been talking about echoed, found great resonance with me. I do eat meat. I love meat, sadly, I suppose, but I don't ever buy anything other than free range meat and so on. That's the way I think I can help a little bit. And we don't eat that much meat. I do think, though, that we from the Indian subcontinent have a great advantage when we become vegetarian. Some of the vegetarian, there have been huge strides of late in the English British culture, but it has taken a long time, and it used to be so bland and uninteresting, the vegetarian food that we used to get. I remember once I had a student who was a vegan, and we were on a field trip, and he said, you know, he was a vegan, and everybody else was being served a roast dinner, and he got some vegetables with some roasted peanuts. Equivalent of roast meat was a packet of roasted peanuts. That was an, you know, it just so we have made huge strides, and I think we from the Asian subcontinent have been able to contribute a great deal to the culinary culture of the country to enable this revolution to take place, and I think that is very good, and places like Slough are extremely good for that. But when people were talking about feelings and cooking vibrations into food and all that, I was reminded of Laura Esquivel's novel, Like Water for Chocolate. I think it's a very, very good novel, but it's all about a very frustrated woman putting a lot of the frustration into the food that she cooked and the effect it had on the people who ate it. If anybody has got time, it's worth read. I mean, not just a read, but never mind about the allusions or that I was mentioning. Thank you for inviting me to talk. I wasn't going to say anything really.
No, that was marvelous. Thank you, Anna.
Very interesting, and thank you for all the people who did contribute.
Yeah, some people know I'm Turkish in origin. I'm living in this country 33 years now, and I have a kind of cuisine, mixed cuisine, family coming from Balkans, married to a person who has Macedonian and Cretan background, and vegetarian, fish, chicken, you name it. We eat everything. The only thing is, whatever you can cook with meat, you can cook without meat. So all those recipes can be actually cooked without meat. So if you don't want to eat meat, you have a rich tradition, you have a rich cuisine. It is not like the current, as you said, Anna, current vegetarians, oh, I have to eat salads all the time. It is actually cooked food with vegetables. So new generation could learn a little bit from those cuisines, Middle Eastern and South Asian cuisines and Asian cuisines. They do non-meat food as well. Anyone else, or how are we doing with time?
I have one more question, if I can ask.
Go on, Eva.
If this recipe, because I know we try to cook healthy food, but like salad is not always healthy, because if you mix cucumber with tomato, it's not healthy for your stomach because they cause acid. Did you care about this when you made the recipes? You know, you check if this can put together Because it doesn't matter if they're healthy growing, but if you mix them unhealthy, it's not going to be healthy for your body. Because I finished agriculture school and I have
who wants to answer that? Anita?
So I think traditionally when we learn how to cook in the Indian subcontinent particularly, there are certain things that go with other things quite well. And Sushma will tell you, yesterday she made saag, which is a green, mustard green. She made saag and she put paneer in it. And traditionally, it just goes well because it is complementary. There is a little bit of dairy in it and there's some spices and then there's greens. So it's a one-pot meal all on its own. So I suspect that traditionally there has been some research into what things actually go quite well. But our knowledge about what doesn't go well is improving on a daily basis. So we are all evolving. We are all learning about new things. I remember eating peanuts all the time as a child and sharing it without giving it a second thought to anybody. You know, I used to give it out to anyone who was in our house. And now I am petrified of giving peanuts to people because you don't know whether they've got allergies, whether they are not able to digest that, they've got other things going on. So clearly what goes well at one point in time may not necessarily be what goes well today in our lives. So we all have to sort of adapt to what we're learning about food. And if you've been, like you said, going into college and you learn more about things that don't go well, I suspect as and when these things become more widely understood, we will adapt our recipes to that as we go forward.
Yeah, but I ask different, not like about peanuts or allergies. I talk about like cucumber is healthy, tomato is healthy, yeah, but put them together is unhealthy for the long term.
Yes.
If you eat them together. Both of them is healthy. That's what I said. When you have recipes and you put some, you know, different ingredients, and sometimes these ingredients can be unhealthy, even if they food you think is healthy, but they cause trouble to your body, and for the long term is toxic or others. I'm talking about
no, that's sensible. That's why nutritionists are talking about how to eat certain food. But here, what we are talking about is traditions of centuries. I'm sure these ladies learned from their families what goes with what is the best tasting food, what is good for your health. And if we were talking about heritage, tradition, and what we learned from our families. Talking about healthy eating, I'm going to share one last message and we are going to close this meeting. Billy Cousins from Active Slough, Slough Borough Council, he's very interested in what we are doing. And he said, thank you for the invite. Unfortunately, I have to go, but great to be involved. Great speeches about food relative to faith and culture, also healthy. Thank you very much. Good evening all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for
Excellent
coming.
evening.
Goodbye.
Bye, Carol.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Eva. Okay. Sushma, you can log off, yes. And who's the last person? Home's phone. David, can you log this person off?
Well, I think we're all going, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Well, no worries.
Thank
Didn't do
you.
anything.
Found your dog?
Yeah. Yeah, he was eating bread from the bird table that had fallen off.
They do that, don't they?
Yeah.
Good night. Thank
Good night. See you.
Bye.
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 Bye.